Good evening, early evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome all of you at our today's event, which is devoted to future of Ukraine. And my name is Jan Macháček. I am president of the Strategeo Institute, which is organizing this event together with Anglo-American University. And we already had one discussion about the future of Ukraine 6 months ago, but it was a bit unfortunate because Ambassador Zvarych got stuck in the traffic, so we are very happy we have him here today. He is actually on the phone, but he is just on his way. And yeah, last time Mr. Schwarz was sitting here on his behalf. We are also very glad that we have General Řehka, who is Chief of Staff of Czech Army, as you know. Thank you. And we are very glad that he could make it today. We have Mr. Krogman, who is a Czech entrepreneur, very much active in Ukraine, and also chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, the Czech-Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce. And we have Tomáš Kopečný, who is a Czech ambassador to the aid for the aid of or special envoy for the aid of to Ukraine. So, Tomáš, welcome. Tomáš was here in the previous debate. We also have Elias here, who is a student of Anglo-American University. Welcome. And as some of you who are coming at our events know, that we always have one student of Anglo-American University who is willing to make our panels to look a little bit younger and fresh. So thanks for that it's not only a meeting of old white men, as they say. So, sorry, Tomáš. Okay, so this is the introduction of the panel. I would like to thank again to Anglo-American University and Mr. Schwarz for helping us to make it happen. And I would sit down and I would kick off the topic of the discussion. We will, well, 6 weeks ago, basically, there was a time of possible, that there was a discussion about possible ceasefire or even some kind of a peace agreement or preliminary peace agreement in Ukraine. And there was a very almost detailed discussion about what should happen after the ceasefire. And there was a talk about guarantees, and if European powers and European partners and supporters of Ukraine could provide these guarantees, and if Americans could kind of like guarantee these guarantees from the air, etc. But suddenly, from different reasons, everything evaporated. It seems that American president is not that much interested in pushing for a ceasefire at the moment. So the first very important topic here to discuss today is what should we do now? Who should be sort of pushing for ceasefire or peace, or is it necessary to really push for quick ceasefire or peace, or what should we provide Ukrainians with instead of that, or what should be complementary with this, and it means how we should help Ukrainians militarily, financially, to defend their country, to increase their defense capabilities, defense production. And so what's the goal now, basically, for supporters of Ukraine? Another very important topics we should discuss now, and that's one of the reasons we have Tomáš here. What should be the financial and other aid to Ukraine, and how we should think these days when the war still continues about reconstruction of Ukraine. And last but not least, there are two important topics of integrating Ukraine to European Union. Somehow there is not much discussion anymore about Ukraine becoming a member of NATO or somehow affiliated. So if it is off the table, we should explain to ourselves why it is off the table. So I hope I didn't forget about anything important. And I should ask all the panelists for first opening speech, 5-7 minutes. Then they would react to each other, and then we would open the discussion to your question. In between, we will have a little surprise for you, but that's another thing. But don't worry. So perhaps we should start with Ambassador Zvarych for his opening speech. Thanks, Ambassador.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you all who gathered here. I know that there are a lot of Ukrainian students here, so Slava Ukraini, вітаю вас. Thank you, my fellow ambassadors who also came to listen to us. Mr. Jan, he poses a lot of questions, but with the pessimistic notes, very pessimistic notes. I would rather be more optimistic, as Ukrainians are always. First, Ukraine is not losing this war, and Russia is not winning this war. When we look at what is going on at the battlefield, Russia cannot achieve any strategic goals they planned. And due to the courage of Ukrainian soldiers, their resilience, we are able not only to deter them, but also to make some counter-offensive operations and liberate some villages from the Russian aggressors. So it means that it will not be an easy piece of cake for Russia anymore. And moreover, we as Ukrainians, we know how to fight with them, and we know how to win Russia. The only thing that we need is your support, your military assistance, and sometimes your decisiveness on the part of our partners and allies. And I would be also more optimistic, because when we look at the development of the entire situation, how it started in 2022, how the position of our partners evolved from the non-lethal weapons to every lethal weapons. So it means it seems that we should be a little bit more optimistic. Nowadays we have a coalition of the willing. Even 3 or 4 months ago, nobody could even imagine the discussion about boots on the ground. Now we discussed this issue, and there are very strong commitments on the part of our partners. So it's very positive development. The second, we have this format Rammstein, which is composed of more than 50 countries. And they also have meetings, commitments, and so on and so forth. What is very important for us is to keep US at the table all the time. Notwithstanding the fact that sometimes we feel a little bit concerned about the position of President Donald Trump, but anyway, we still believe that he has a leverage over Russia. and his sometime unpredictability can be an asset. And sooner or later, he will definitely understand that Putin is simply mocking him, and that Putin is not interested in any kind of peace talks unless he is pushed to that. So the only way how to achieve peace in Ukraine is through our unity, power, and strength. Putin will continue this war until he is capable to do that. And if we look at some financial figures, budget and so on and so forth, nowadays Putin is capable, unfortunately, to spend more than $500 million per day on the war against Ukraine. Where he gets money for that? The biggest revenues he gains from oil and gas export. So we should focus on all possible means how to make this war machine runs out of fuel. And that's why sanctions are very important, and they are really functioning. Despite the fact that Russia is trying to circumvent them all the time, they are really functioning, and the economic growth of Russia is declining all the time. Now it's less than 1% in comparison to 4.3% as they planned for this year. So definitely, we know how to fight with Russia. We know how to win this war. The only thing that we need is our unity and decisiveness and some courage on the part of our partners as well. So it's a nutshell.
Thank you very much, Excellency. And I would like to ask now General Řehka for his opening remarks. Thank you, General.
Okay, thank you. I also want to thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be here, and I think it's very important to have these discussions. And it's a good sign that there are so many people across the society still interested in the outcome of the war in the Ukraine. So I didn't put together any formal remarks. I'll just throw a couple of thoughts, and then I guess there will be discussion. So there was a question in the beginning from the moderator about the Ukraine future. The Ukrainian future depends on us very much, on our Western support, but at the same time, our future depends on the Ukraine future very much. Russia was, Russia is, and Russia will remain the major threat to us, especially here in this geographical region and to Czech Republic. And that will be regardless of the outcome of the war. But the outcome of the war, an outcome means what Putin can get away with, how we will behave as a West. That will shape the rules of the world, and that will shape our own security. It's not also only Russia, because the security is interconnected. So what is happening in Ukraine is very, very crucial for us now. But what is happening in Indo-Pacific, in Middle East, in Sahel, that's also interconnected. And Russia is active, and Russia must be contained not only here, but in other places. And also, what is happening now in Ukraine will not only shape the behavior of Russia in future, but also behavior of powers like China, for example, in future. So it is also critical how we deal with this and how we behave and how we support Ukrainians. There was a question of peace and ceasefire. In my assessment and our military assessment, we don't see it likely to have a ceasefire or peace anytime soon. And there was question whether Donald Trump wants it. I don't know, and I'm not in position to comment it, but I'm pretty sure that Putin doesn't want it. And it just doesn't make any sense for them right now. So will there be any peace, like a real peace? I don't think so anytime soon. Should there be any ceasefire? I believe there should be, but not under any conditions. There must be right conditions set. And obviously, yes, what is happening in Ukraine is tragic, and everyone would like to stop it at some time. But there would have to be real plan and real security guarantees, because Russians, and it was mentioned here, they're not taking it easily. They're not winning at all, and they need a break too. And we don't want to give them the break just to rearm and then start again. What we need to do now is that we need to support Ukraine, that's for sure, and we need to speed up our support and strengthen it, because it's admirable what morale Ukrainians still have, after 3.5 years of this terrible war, but it's not endless, and it's not only running out of ammunition, it's also about running out of people and devastating the society. So I think we should really speed up our support, and we just cannot, this cannot go forever. At the same time, I think we need to strengthen our unity, especially in the North Atlantic Alliance, and I think we are united, but we need to strengthen it. And we need to try to strengthen the transatlantic bond and relationship with the United States. Why? Because if Russians start to believe that Europe is weak and US is leaving Europe, that would be the most dangerous situation that could lead to miscalculation on the side of Putin, and that could lead to tragedy. And we want to avoid it. I don't think it's true. It's not true. But it doesn't matter. If they believe it, it doesn't matter if it's true. And then we need to support Ukraine. We need to strengthen and show our unity and the transatlantic bond, strong transatlantic bond. And we also need to build a stronger deterrence and defense, especially in the European pillar of the NATO. So we really need to speed up, because we have a lot of gaps here from the past. Our deterrence is obviously working, because otherwise we wouldn't have peace. But we have a lot of homework to do, and we should feel some sense of urgency, and not in every country. Definitely not in Czech Republic. We don't have that feeling of sense of urgency. You can see it in Baltics. You can see it in Poland, in some other countries. But actually not here, really. So I think we also need to educate and explain to our society what is the real state of events, what are the threats, not to scare them, but just to explain them so they understand, and then have a serious discussion what we're going to do about it. And I'm missing this a little bit here. But the main topic is Ukraine, so definitely we need to support them, because supporting them is not only morally right, but it's just smart for our own security in future. I think that's enough for the start.
Thank you very much, General, and I would like to ask now Tomáš Kopečný for his intervention.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here again. Thank you, Mr. Dean, Mr. Moderator, Jan, for the invitation. I guess the discussion we're all having or we're thinking about is how to bring peace around. That was the main topic of the YES conference that took place in Kyiv actually last weekend. And I will just address it through 3 points. I will address the capabilities we need to build with Ukrainians, the capacities we need, and then what can we expect that we will actually do, we as the West, about those things. So first, capabilities. Very simply, I will just follow up on what our Chief of Defense was saying. We need deterrence. That's the main capability we need as the West, along with the Ukrainians. But what does it actually mean? Sometimes people put it on their socks, like missiles. Just the imagination of being able to hit Moscow That's a deterrence. But it's not only important that this imagination lays in our hands, it needs to be fully laid down in the heads of the Moscow elites. And that's not empty threatening or escalation. This is what deterrence in principle means, what it means. So it's about missiles. It's about not only deep strike drones, it's about missiles, ballistic missiles, or all sorts of missiles that used to be developed in the city of Dnipro in Ukraine. That is, along with any other city in Ukraine, now being shelled with those very same products it engineered back in the 70s and 80s. And Ukraine has the capability to develop those. And it starts to produce those. And what was unimaginable for most in the world, and even in Ukraine, is now happening. We've all seen the Flamingo project, the pink lipstick-like missile. That is terrifying, of course, but that also can only bring some peace, not satisfaction, not vengeance, but peace to the minds of Ukrainians, because only a deterrence that can strike sensitive targets in Russia means something that Russia can fear, and that's the language that Russia understands only. Now, the capabilities don't only stop with deterrence of being hit. It also means to not only to prevent, that's the imagination part, but also to stop the front line where it is now. And when Poland was attacked 2 weeks ago, around 20 Shahid drones flew into the airspace, and everybody just panicked. And my friends, they started thinking about what country should I buy a real estate in, like westernmost from here. After this, right? Some people started doing this after 22, but some people after the Poland attack. Of course, I gave an advice, but also what I noted was, this was 20 drones in a night where 500 of them flew and ended in Ukraine itself. So imagine what would the air defense in Poland look like, and how much would it cost to shoot down those missiles, those drones, with the super expensive F-35 and F-16 anti-drone and anti-missile interceptors. The rockets cost so much. So when the discussion in Europe began, speaking about the capability to build up the Great Wall, let's not imagine what Donald Trump has in mind. Let's not imagine something from Game of Thrones. It's not physical. It's about what can actually take down so many drones in an economic sense, in a sustainable way. And now almost 90% of those being taken down in Ukraine are done by, again, UAVs, drones. So it's not about a giant net. It's not about lasers from Star Wars fantasies. And yes, there are lasers interceptors, but they are not that frequent and economic and just interoperable with everything else. Most drones in Ukraine are taken down by another drone. So that's what the wall should look like. That's the capability we need along with Ukrainians. And yes, it's also the capability to hold the line, not only with drones, which now cost more than 95% of all human casualties, and almost 90% of technique being destroyed is done by drones again, but also artillery and all the other capabilities any military needs. So that's the capability. That's just to understand what's important. And in Europe, we're gonna spend hundreds of billions of euro, and we're gonna do that in the next 2 years. And every taxpayer will be asking, okay, so is this really needed? Is this worth it? So first, let's not think about the product. Let's think about the capabilities we need. As taxpayers, we should be thinking about those. Because if you travel to Ukraine, and I just came back, you see on the train small kids, bigger kids, adults, people in senior age, and they all know what a KH-101 ballistic missile looks like. They all know that there are so many different types of ballistic missiles and so many types of interceptors and different types of drones and tanks, because they learned it the hard way. But kids learn this thing. We as taxpayers should be learning the basic stuff as well, because it will not be enough to spend the 3.5%/5% on defense. It will be necessary to build the capabilities, Now the struggle with Russia is not only in outspending them because they are much more efficient, so much more efficient than us. Not only because of the fact that we produce so many types of tanks and those things, and it will never be much different than it is now, because we need them for different kinds of operations, but it's also because the economy in Russia is cheaper. The energy is so much cheaper. So it will always be cheaper to produce these things in Russia. So it's not about outspending them only, it's about knowing what capabilities we should be building. So we should be listening much more to our militaries that will be telling us this. And now just shortly on the capacity part. Imagine what we need. Like, figures matter. So if we think in the first days of the full-scale invasion, there was a big thing. Oh, Czechia is donating 4,008 pieces of large caliber ammunition. Wow, that's like 4,000 pieces of something that's valuable, right? It's like for a few hours. So the number you should be hearing from your governments is, yes, we will be able to produce 100 million rounds of artillery ammunition. That's the order we're talking about. We should be talking about dozens of thousands of missiles we should be producing in Europe. That's the number we should be hearing from our political representatives. And we should be scaling up the production of drones. Because in Ukraine right now, just this year, more than 3.5 million pieces of drones have already been produced. And if they had enough finances, they will have produced almost 10 million pieces, but they don't, so it will be less. Look at production capacities of any UAV manufacturer in Europe, even the big ones, those who are getting all the substitutes, substitutes from the government. Numbers matter. It's about capacities as well as capabilities. What can we expect? Just briefly. How to read Trump, Jan was asking. It's a psychological question, but the more important question is how to read the United States, how to listen to what they have actually been telling us for the past 15 years. That they are the driver in the car, and we're sometimes when bigger European countries are like, on the passenger seat or on the next to the driver, but most of the countries in Europe are actually on the kid's seat, backwards. And they're looking out of the window and wow, that's a great thing. Wow, what an adventure. Because, the main task is being done by the driver. And now the driver is sort of stepping out of the vehicle and saying, hey, I'm not driving anymore, I'm tired. And we're like, yeah, but it doesn't work this way because you're the driver. You have the driving license. And we can't produce F-35s and air defense systems and almost every other thing that is like top-notch technologically. But it's the wake-up call, and I'm very optimistic about the future of Europe because we can build these things as well, not only replace F-35s. That's not the big deal. That's not the main deal. It's about building the capabilities we need to protect ourselves. And the US is not saying, oh, I leave you here in the middle of the desert in the car alone. They're just saying, just understand your dependency on us. And also understand that, your kids, you're playing video games back there, on your cell phones, and you're sending so much money to Russia for these video games, for your welfare, the cheap energy stuff. Stop it. You want secondary sanctions? There was a very fair argument Donald Trump made. Of course, he wanted it to evade the action. But the argument was Reaganish and fair. So you're buying so much gas and oil still? You're not imposing secondary sanctions yourselves, and now it's like, oh, it's your moral obligation and duty to do it? I don't have a problem with Donald Trump saying it. Of course, I'm hoping that he will eventually do the same as we would do, but when Jan asked what should we do, we should impose secondary sanctions as well. The same way we want the US to do that. That's what our political elites should do. Last point, yes, we don't feel the sense of urgency, but in this country, for sure. But we still do have the potential to make a huge contribution to the effort of defense of Europe. And it's not only about what the government is and will be doing. And frankly, there could have been so much more this government have done. And frankly, it doesn't look so much brighter for the support of Ukraine after the elections. But at the same time, it might not have been about the government spending. It might be much more about the mobilization of private capital. What has happened in European financial markets over the past 3 years has been unimaginable before, and it's the biggest turnover in many of the minds in the banking system. Now, defense military money, defense military portfolios in the funds is not toxic anymore. On the contrary. Think about not only the venture capitalists, but also the private equity. All the major funds now want to have some piece of it. So think about what we can contribute with the Czech capital, but also with Czech technologies being dragged into the bigger European capital that we would be using for the defense of Ukraine for the capabilities and the capacities I was talking about. So that will be my initial words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I would like to ask Mr. Krogman for his opening speech.
Dobrý den. I will start with the peace ceasefire, and I will be a little bit pessimistic because I must agree with Mr. Zvarych, with Mr. Řehka, that we are not even close to ceasefire, and maybe there will be no ceasefire, and I will try to tell the reasons. First reason is that it is profitable for Putin to continue the war, and the second biggest reason that it is really necessary and he is pushed to continue the war by us. So the first reason why it is profitable. It is profitable economically, politically, geopolitically, territorially. Why economically? War is pushing up the prices of commodities, and Russia is a commodity country, country of commodities. And it is pushing up also the prices of weapons. And even though Ukraine destroyed the trade with weapons, the Russian exports of weapons, Russia is relatively earning money on that because we have to buy super expensive weapons while Russia can produce them on their own. Why they profit politically? Putin profits politically because he can consolidate power in Russia much easily now. And geopolitically, Putin now gains the respect he always wanted. The Russia has lost it in the past. And second thing, he is destabilizing our democracies through the war. One would expect that the aggression against Russia will strengthen our democracies, our principles. The opposite is the truth. It is destabilizing us because selfishness and xenophobia are the main drivers of our mind. So this is the biggest problem, and Putin is one of the best psychologists of the world. And I will mention also the territoriality. Russia gains new lands, including raw materials. It gains access to new ports, new cities, new population ready for the army, etc. You can count the millions of people in Donbass, Crimea, etc. So the second reason why it is necessary and why we are pushing Putin to continue the war, why there will be no ceasefire. We clearly stated, our politicians, that after ceasefire we will send troops to Ukraine to keep it. Putin is not stupid. If you promise him to send troops after the ceasefire, it is clear that he cannot stop the war. He is really not idiot. So this alibistic future promise from us is actually destroying Ukraine. It committed Putin to continuing the war, unfortunately. Mr. Zvarych expressed the hope that Trump has some leverage over Putin. I'm afraid that Putin has some leverage over Trump. So it is really hard to cut this vicious circle. And I also doubt that the unpredictability is an asset here. I really doubt it. US was really weakened by two really old senile men, in the recent time. So this is our big problem. I mean, also the European problem. The second topic was military and economic support. I would say Ukraine is doing very well on the military field, but is losing on the economic field. I feel it. I'm doing business in Ukraine. I just discussed with Mr. Zvarych that we will close part of our businesses in Kharkiv region because Russians in last week destroyed 3 of our combines harvesters, and actually this night, they attacked one of our silos with a drone, which was full of those. This is not the weapon which is spreading the explosive dust, and then it is designed to burn the air. Thermobaric. So it was really, when I was watching that on videos through this from this night, it was really disastrous. This is it is really a problem if the economic life will stop in the near the front line. We are doing our best. We are really good, but we cannot sustain the Russian pressure. And this is what Putin wants us to leave the region economically. Then the army will also leave because the soldiers will not want to die for an empty desert. So this is problem in economic. One more thing I would mention: Europe is doing too little in sanctions. We continue to export to Russia. Exports to Russia are higher when you count goods and services are higher than exports to Ukraine. Exports of pharmaceuticals even increased, are higher than for 2024, are higher than in 2021, and Russia increased import of pharmaceuticals in the second half of 21 because they were preparing for the war. And even though it is higher now, it is really stupid, it is selfish, and we are killing ourselves by doing this. The third topic, EU membership, which was mentioned, and necessary domestic reforms. I think I mentioned that last time that Ukrainian institutions are too weak, are not strong enough to fulfill all EU conditions. You cannot expect from crippled child to fulfill the same conditions as the healthy child. So the best solution, the most wise solution, is to accept Ukraine immediately and transform Ukraine already inside EU. It is not possible to do it outside EU. It will never happen. It will be another time for Putin to show us that he's faster than us in making obstacles and shaping the minds of our voters. There will be not enough votes to accept Ukraine in the future. So this is the problem on EU side. EU should change its mechanism of accepting Ukraine, because its situation is special. And on the domestic side of Ukraine, I must mention that Ukraine is very unfair country, unfortunately. I can comment agriculture. We have farms in Kharkiv, we have farms in the western Ukraine. In Kharkiv, we are losing money, closing farms. In western Ukraine, we are earning money. We have profits, we have super profits, thanks to high commodity prices. And there is zero profit tax in Ukraine for agriculture farms, for the most profitable farms, who are more profitable than those in Europe. This is really stupid. There must be a regional policy. Those who are profitable must contribute to the overall security, otherwise Russians will come to their place in 1 to 3 years. So Ukraine must have, actually I mentioned that it is not it is not weak, strong enough, its institutions, to make fair environment inside. So it should become member of EU immediately, because this is the only way how to make it happen. So that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Krogman. And now Elias.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and esteemed panel members. It is an honor to be the student representative for Anglo-American University. I have a few things to say, just touching on what what has been said already. And I want to say that peace talks must include Ukraine. Perhaps that is a very naive statement, but whatever security guarantees that are agreed upon must be incredibly strong. We've seen what happened with the denuclearization in the 90s of Ukraine and how that agreement didn't hold at all. So I don't know how realistic that is, but it would be a strong gesture from Europe and maybe the United States that Ukraine is at the table for those peace talks. And I very much agree that Europe's security is definitely tied to Ukraine's security. As we've seen the past few weeks, Putin has been testing NATO's borders with fighter jets and drones, and recently a spy plane that was over the Baltic Sea. That to me is a signal that without some sort of action from NATO, like deterrence, a conflict between Russia and NATO is maybe not an if, but a when. And perhaps economically, Ukraine is not doing well. I'm not an expert in that at all. But I've been to Ukraine a few times doing humanitarian aid work. That is the goal of what I would like to do with my career, is work in humanitarian aid. And I have seen the incredible resilience of the population and seen images of women getting their hair done in salons with blown out windows from the attack the night before. So I have no doubt in my mind that the Ukrainian population will continue to thrive even under terrible circumstances. On the topic of Trump, I'm American and have never once supported him. And I do not believe he has leverage over Putin. I believe Putin is playing him like a puppet. We can see that in the trip that Putin took to Alaska. Putin got his photo op. Putin got a private meeting with Trump that apparently all the people around Trump looked very unhappy when they walked out of that room. And then Putin said, he spoke for quite a long time at that press event, and then he left. So I don't see Trump having any, Trump looks up to him. I deeply believe that. So I don't think Trump, I think the United States is crucial, but I don't think it is under the leadership of Trump. I remain cautiously optimistic, despite my pessimistic statements, that Russia is not winning the war. Putin's intent was to take Kyiv in 3 days, and here we are, almost 4 years. And Ukraine is not wavering. They are holding strong, and recently have taken back some territory here and there. So that is all I have to say at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elias. And now I would interrupt the discussion, and there is this surprise I spoke about, so I would give a floor for a while to my colleague, Mr. Schwarz.
So let me introduce myself. So I am president of Anglo-American University. So we are really very proud and very happy that we can host you here, and especially this discussion. Ukrainian students are the third largest cohort at the Anglo-American University, just behind American and Czech students. Before Russian aggression to Ukraine, the third largest cohort came from Russian Federation. So Ukraine replaced Russian Federation after this aggression. So we are also very happy that we can support Ukrainian students. We just provided 19 students with full scholarship. We cover also their accommodation in Prague, and we provide them allowance each month, 15,000 crowns, because we would like that they should study here if they are here, not to work here for paying tuition. And they don't pay tuition, so they study here for free. So in total, the Board of Trustees decided just to provide for this project 15 million Czech crowns, and that is private activity. And I am also proud what Czech government is doing for Ukraine. And after creating just the second homeland for Ukrainian students here, we decided to expand now to Ukraine with supporting of Ukrainian translation of just great book of very well-known and famous Czech historian Petr Blažek. The name of this book is Living Torches. Petr, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for invitation for this interesting discussion, and especially for the cooperation and support of this Ukraine edition, published Ukraine edition. My book. This book is dedicated to 22 cases of very dramatic self-immolation in Soviet bloc from 1966 to 1989. This book was published in Czech in 2019 by Institute of Totalitarian Study, and maybe 2023 was published in Romania, in Romanian edition, and now is Ukraine edition and English edition. English edition was published by Carolinum, and this Ukraine edition was published by Duch I Litera. It is very famous publishers in Kiev. And thank you very much for this cooperation. It is for me very important because from these 22 cases, 5 cases is from Ukraine, and it was very important for Czechoslovakia because one case is case from 1968. It is Vasyl Makuch, and Vasyl Makuch protested also not only Soviet occupation, his homeland Ukraine, but protested to again Soviet occupation of Czechoslovakia in August 1968. Thank you very much, Mr. Schwarz, and thank you very much for a few words about this book. Thank you.
Thank you, Jiří and Petr. And now we would continue with the discussion. I would have a few subsequent questions for most of you. You can also react to each other if you feel that something important was said before. But perhaps we could start with Tomáš. I think you a little bit avoided the question. You avoided the question of EU membership. If you could elaborate on it a little bit, because you are still a representative of government. And plus, you also avoided the question of reconstruction. We know that there is a hot war continuing, so it's hard to reconstruct something in the middle of the war, but it is your portfolio anyway. But please, shortly, but to the point.
Okay, shortly. So we're trying to demonstrate that the reconstruction of Ukraine is already happening. Since the very first months of the full-scale invasion, we have started bringing business delegations to Ukraine. My first mission was in July 22, and ever since I brought like 15 different delegations from energy, healthcare, water treatment, and most recently, during the past year, mental health specialists. What's happening? Last September, I was opening a 60 megawatt wind power plant, purely done during the full-scale invasion by M&D, private investment. We also developed our own National Development Bank's program for Ukraine that will be covering up to 200 million euro worth of projects through guarantees on the investments. So it's already happening. Yes, we call it slow and small phase of reconstruction of Ukraine, but you can see there's plenty of money, plenty of investments already being done. The closer to the front line, the smaller projects we do, because the economy of war dictates that the thing you build should be less expensive than the rocket that could destroy it. So we're, for instance, 1/3 of Kharkiv heat and electricity comes from Czech supplied combined heat and power units that are very much decentralizing the network so that when they get hit, and it actually has happened only once and it survived, but even though if you hit it with a precise guided ballistic missiles, it's several times more expensive than the thing itself, so than the CHP itself. So so this is how we do it. We build small, we build decentralized. We're starting to decentralize the water treatment plants, the water networks in the communities, in municipalities, in big cities everywhere. The same we did with energy since 3 years ago. So yeah, reconstruction of Ukraine is happening. There's like 9 billion euro from the Ukraine Facility Program from the European Commission. EIB is hesitant, but they are doing some bits and pieces. EBRD the same. Czech, Polish, German, and Slovak national development banks are in full swing of starting their programs there. So yeah, it's taking place, and now we're focusing a lot on dual use so that we can cover something that's between the military and the civilian. For the EU membership, it's not out of the question. The process is slow. Those who have been too optimistic about getting there very soon, I guess now are becoming more aware of the fact that this is a long journey. The chapter that's the most important is rule of law, justice. Is justice blind in Ukraine? I mean, yeah, we can have our opinions about, say, whether the different testimonies comes from propaganda or experience, but the point is, ask the business people. Ask people who come and invest in the country. Is justice blind in Ukraine? For most, yes. In some cases, it's more limited, but that's what the reform of the rule of law is about. The single most important pillar of the accession process to the EU. And it's not about only the big institutions. It's how, as a small investor, you feel when you win a concession somewhere for the exploitation of, whatever. It can be a mineral or it can be oil and gas. And then the local court says, oh, it actually belongs to my cousin. So, yeah. Then whether the secondary court overrules this, that's what makes justice blind. So that would be my answer. They are in the process. Also, we know that Ukraine is not bleeding for the economic profits. But let me say this, Ukraine is far closer and more integrated into the European market than the UK is now. They have many benefits and accesses to the single market of the EU, which is the driving force of development. And of course, my sincere wish is that Ukraine becomes a full-fledged member state as soon as possible. That's without doubt. And many of us, especially in this room, but in the Czech population and European population, feel about it this way. But again, it's a long-term process. And I would stress we should focus on the concrete agendas and what it brings to the improvement of the lives of Ukrainians.
Thank you, Tomáš. Ambassador, you definitely have a lot to say, but I also have one question. Is your government currently under any pressure? Do you feel any pressure to go for ceasefire or some peace talks, or is it like, are you like liberated from the pressure at the moment?
Sorry, peace talks with whom? This is the question, because as you know, since the very beginning in March, we've agreed with the idea of Donald Trump to have a ceasefire, at least for 30 days, to give a chance to real diplomacy. But on the other side, Mr. Putin decided to escalate the war even further. So we are insisting each and every time that we have to have peace talks, but real peace talks at the level of leaders, because only at the level of leaders we can find some solutions to end this madness. That's it. And Ukraine is not an obstacle to the peace talks. Ukraine is pushing hard to have these peace talks, but on the other side of this front line, we see no any intention or any signs of will to have these real peace talks. The only thing that Putin wants is our capitulation, but he cannot expect capitulation from us. He is an aggressor. We are a victim. So basically, that is a difference. So we should do our best not to violate the international law, to protect it, and to bring the aggressor to justice. That's if we want to have stability and peace for our future generation to come. That is the essence of the entire problem. Here I do appreciate what I heard from the panelists. Each and every word was from the bottom of their hearts, I believe that. And I do appreciate that. But I still would like to encourage all of us not to give up, because we know what is at stake. It's not about Ukraine only. Okay, we are bleeding now, but it's not about Ukraine. And if you remember November 2022, when the president of Ukraine proposed a peace formula, from the very beginning of the Russian aggression, he suggested the peace formula based on UN Charter, 10 points. So this was a huge and big initiative, not only about Ukraine, but about the entire international order. We would like everybody to learn the lessons properly from what Putin did to us, and to make sure that nothing like this will happen in the future. So we should do our best to learn these lessons. So speaking about Russia as a long-lasting threat, everybody agrees that Russia is a long-lasting threat. NATO put forward this concept that Russia will be a long-lasting threat for the foreseeable future. But it's up to us to ensure that this threat lasts not that long time. I mean, we should unite our forces, and I'm sure that everybody knows what to do to make the threat as short as possible. Coalition of the Willing is a very good initiative, and it is not about encouraging Putin to continue war. It's about showing our strength to him, and about showing that it's unacceptable what he is doing in Ukraine, and he should feel the consequences of his crimes in Ukraine. And we will do our best to make him feel that. We can criticize Ukrainian economic situation, we can criticize everything, but please show me an example of any country in the world who is in the war but trying to cope with its economic problems in a way Ukraine does. Even during the time of war, our economy is growing slowly but steadily. In the situation when 67% of our budget goes for military purposes. We should stop this madness, we should stop Putin. And then I'm sure that Ukraine will show an enormous progress. Because we've established a huge potential in many fields, in defense industry, even in agriculture. We have a huge prospects. And I'm sure that we will surprise the world once. About the European integration, it's our deliberate choice. In Ukrainian society, more than 80% of Ukrainians support EU membership. It's the biggest, I mean, it's the the biggest figure among all EU members nowadays. Nobody in Ukraine is against Ukraine's EU membership, and we are doing a lot for that. Okay, we are bound by some limits, war limits and so on and so forth, but we've managed to become EU candidate member during the time of war. We have finalized nowadays the entire screening process of Ukrainian legislation with EU acquis, and we are about to start the negotiations, pre-accession negotiations talks, but it's not, the problem is not in us, in Ukraine. The problem is because some of EU countries decided to misuse their membership in the EU and not to allow us to start even this first chapter of negotiations, which is very crucial about fundamentals, rule of law, and etc. So we should find a way how to press on these countries, I mean Hungary, Slovakia, why they are blocking our path towards EU membership. If we all agree that EU membership will help us to solve the problems, even those Peter was mentioning about. So I'm sure that everybody of us knows the right recipe, how to proceed further and how to achieve success, how to stop Putin, how to stop this war. But we should be more decisive on many aspects. Let's take sanctions, for instance. 19th package of sanctions is still under consideration in the EU. What we are waiting for? More people to be killed in Ukraine, or more territory to be occupied, or what? 19th package of sanctions is crucial because it covers a lot of important things like shadow fleets. Oil and gas export for Russia is the biggest, the biggest source of war machine, and we know how to stop it. Just do it. What about financial restrictions? You know that in Russia, more than 300 banks still operates freely. These are the instruments for Russia, how to circumvent all the financial restrictions and sanctions. It's another surprise. So still, the instruments are there. The only thing that we need is to implement them into reality. So please do not give up. Do not hesitate. Do act fast as possible, because time is really the biggest pressure on us, because we are losing people. We are losing people, and that's the biggest danger. And Mr. Peter, we're really sorry about your combiners, about your tractors. And really it's a huge blow to your business. And what can we say? We will compensate all of this when the time comes. Please believe in this. The only thing that we cannot compensate is the loss of our people. And that's what we should be focused on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. If I may, I would like to ask General Řehka. Previous U.S. Biden administration was criticized not for helping Ukraine, but from the position of American taxpayer, it was criticized for not articulating sort of strategic goals of the West, of the U.S. in this war, because most of the U.S. population basically stopped believing that Ukrainian allies and Ukraine would march to Moscow and win the war this way. So I think it was quite easy to formulate these strategic goals, like to keep Ukraine strong, independent, sustainable, etc. But after these peace ceasefire discussions are off the table, apparently again, do we know as allies of Ukraine our strategic goals at this moment, or should we be nervous that we don't have them properly articulated, or maybe I'm mistaken, but
Thank you. So, if I take a alliance, for example, and the collective deterrence and defense, and that's something different from support to Ukraine. Yes, we know we have a NATO military strategy in place that was actually signed and created by the military part before the large-scale invasion. Then we have and it's very clear about the goals and the ends, ways, means, basically, as a strategy should be. We have a NATO deterrence and defense of the alliance area concept, and we have a set of plans. So we are very clear. For the support to Ukraine, and it's my personal view now, I believe that from the very beginning, there was no serious escalation management. It was all public affairs driven. Many times it was basically, if you look from the very beginning, some nations have problems to provide helmets or whatever in the beginning, then the guns, then the ammunition, then tanks, then rockets, then aircraft. And what happened was that we were so afraid of escalation with Russia without any proper analysis and any escalation management skills. It was all domestic policy and PR driven. So usually there would be, oh, no, we cannot give them this because, Russians, blah, 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 blah. And then the public pressure would grow and grow and grow, and finally it would tip it, and they would say, okay, we'll give it to them. Usually it was too little, too late. So we started with really pathetic, worries about providing anything, and finally we given them F-16s and long-range weapons and everything. But it was too little, too late, and many times it wasn't really driven by any serious specialist, advice. So that's my view. And yes, I believe there should be more discussion, and I was raising this in my area among the military, that we should have more discussion about the strategy of the support to Ukraine. Because it's nice to say, oh yes, we want to have, so they have the sovereignty, the Russians don't win, but then you need to have realistic ends, ways, and means. And I think if you just pour the money in and you're not without any plan, and you're not able also to communicate it properly to public, sooner or later people get tired, and then it will end basically. And we saw it in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in everywhere. So yes, I think, and it's not easy. I'm not clear about everything on this myself. I know it's not easy. It's not easy politically. It's not easy in an international setting. So it's very complicated, but I believe we should have more of this discussion. And not everything can be public. Some of that must be behind the closed doors. But yes, I believe. Are we clear now? I think we are clear in the basic stuff. The coalition of the willing was mentioned. There's a lot of open questions because no one knows whether the ceasefire will come, under what conditions, how it's going to be set. So there's a lot of stuff, and especially the policy framework, which must be cleared. But we have some outline plans, and things are moving forward. And as Ambassador mentioned, starting from being scared of providing a few rounds, we came to the point that we are discussing who will provide what type of forces. So there's a progress. I would like to mention one thing, just to react to the discussion here. I could hear like Donald Trump here, Donald Trump there, Donald Trump that, Donald Trump, if Donald Trump, what Donald Trump. What is happening now with U.S. towards the Europe, with the new U.S. administration, it's not about Donald Trump only. Yes, Donald Trump is specific leader. He's got his own ways. He's got his own, support in the U.S. but it's mostly about geopolitical reality. So whether you have Donald Trump there or you would have some other president, you know, the fact that US will not be able to provide us the level of support and a commitment in defense that we got used to in Europe is a fact of life. And it's about other areas, it's about in the Pacific, it's about rising China, it's about many other things. It's about domestic situation in the United States, about many, many other things. So yes, Donald Trump speeded it up. Finally, we started to invest more because we're scared. But it's not like Donald Trump personality. It's a geopolitical reality. It would come sooner or later. And second thing, the US not only we need the United States, because it's all about, oh, US, oh, what US backstop, are you going to get involved? You know, how much, what kind of support, what kind of guarantees? But US also needs Europe. It's not just Europe needs US. Not only US needs stable Europe, but even if you discuss, for example, the potential scenarios for Indo-Pacific, China, you know, Taiwan Strait and other things, at some point, US would also need European support. Maybe not in military domain, but in other domains. And I don't want to be too specific, but it's not just that, you know, we are totally reliant on US. US also needs Europe and need to cooperate with Europe. And I think if we manage it rightly, and if we are realistic, and if we do our homework, sooner or later, the relationships will be, I think, right. And the last one I want to mention here, it's there was someone mentioned that Putin is super excellent, perfect psychologist. Well, Putin is not any good strategist. He's just opportunist. You know, that's it basically. And the war in Ukraine is a proof. I mean, he lost everything. He's moving the Russian nation to the bad direction, and they will suffer. They will suffer for generations because of the Putin steps. He made 2 neutral states to join NATO. He extended the border with NATO. He destroyed their economy. The impact on the culture, education, and science and everything else will be seen in future. So he's not any genius, definitely not. And sorry, I forgot the pen, so I'm typing it into cell phone. It's not that I'm texting friends, you know, I'm just making my notes. Also, there was a lot of discussion about EU membership. So NATO membership. Is it realistic anytime soon, like right now? Maybe not. But we should never say no, because it's a sovereign solution, a sovereign decision of Ukraine and of the member states of NATO. So if it's not ready now because of the situation, the geopolitical situation or whatever, fine. But we should never say never, you know, to Ukrainians. And the same with the EU membership. And also, one thing, the Russian behavior in future is important to us. They are unpredictable, they are aggressive, and I think they will be more unpredictable and more aggressive after this war. But equally important is the direction of Ukraine for us. Because Ukraine is, with all the mistakes we all have in our country, in every country, with all the problems, Ukraine is a strong nation with a huge potential, and it's a pro-Western. They preach the same values as us, and they want to join us. They want to be in our club, and we shouldn't take this for granted. They will get very frustrated. They are already. If you talk to Ukrainians, they are very frustrated, and also frustrated with us. Sometimes it's fair, sometimes not. It doesn't matter, you know. They suffer. They've been in war for a long time. So we shouldn't take this for granted. They need to see the light in the tunnel. And let's not underestimate this. It's not only about Russia, it's also what impact our behavior will have on Ukraine in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, General. Mr. Krogman, do you want to add something, or should I open this discussion to questions from the audience?
It would be a long discussion if he is strategist, good strategist or not. He definitely has got results. In the super long term, it will be not so good. But in the super long term, Putin will be dead, and it is not his interest. I would like to mention that when I told you about our combines, it was only an example what companies like us and other sectors experience in the near the front line in eastern Ukraine. And I will give you another example. A week ago, Russians destroyed or did serious damage to an important bridge in Kremenchuk over Dnipro. And the reaction of Ukrainian government or Ukrainian state railway, they further increased prices for freight, transportation of the grain, of the results of the people's work in the eastern Ukraine to the western Ukraine, to ports which are all in the west. So it is further sign of discriminating people who are living under the biggest pressure. It is uncomparable with western Ukraine. And unfortunately, there is nobody speaking loud for these regions. The Kiev government does not respect justice or does not want. So, I want to emphasize that I am not sorry for me. If I would leave Ukraine in 2014 or latest in February 2022. Instead, I invested more. And I wanted to give Ukraine more and more. I sacrificed maybe 80% of my assets. And still I'm in Ukraine. And I'm trying to highlight the problems, internal problems Ukraine has, because I'm really frustrated. I'm half Ukrainian. I'm really frustrated how the government behaves to eastern regions. Yes, there are problems with money, sometimes with know-how, but there are issues or there are aspects in which the Ukrainian government could act, and we see no reaction. So, I want to say that I'm really fighting for Ukraine. I helped to open the Black Sea corridor, etc., etc. So I'm really on Ukrainian side. So do not take my criticism as it is constructive. I'm trying to achieve something because sometimes somebody listens who can change, deliver the information, and hopefully things will change. Not for our company, we can die. This is just one company. But for those 1,000 kilometers along the front line, which is our security shield. Security shield, not only for Ukraine, Western Ukraine, but also for the Europe. This is the most important thing.
Hello, my name is David Nemek. I'm a student at AAU, and I'm a Czech citizen, but I lived most of my life abroad in various BRICS countries, as well as in the United States. I really appreciate some of the panel members' comments regarding having an honest discussion on this conflict and discussing what's really going on at the front line. Recent reports show that multiple Ukrainian cities on the Eastern Front have been encircled, including Pokrovsk, Donetsk, Kupiansk, Liman. The front line is becoming more fluid. On top of that, Ukrainian morale is falling. I think around 69% of the Ukrainian public has polled that they'd like to see a negotiated settlement rather than a total victory. And there is a major desertion crisis. I think around 7,000 people desert frontline positions of the Ukrainian army every single month, and there might be more. And I worry that the situation we're in right now creates a bit of a dilemma. And as a person from Europe, and as a person who finances this war, I'd like to ask this to the ambassador. Is it in Ukraine's interest to continue fighting this war at this pace? You mentioned yourself that you cannot replace lost people. I cannot agree more. And current statistics show that for every 100 babies born in Ukraine every single day, around 280 people die in Ukraine. It's a horrible catastrophe. I'm sure we can all agree. And I'm just wondering, is it in Ukraine's interest to keep fighting this war? And if so, what will be the impact on reconstruction, on EU accession, and the overall future of Ukraine? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Valentina Garcia. I'm a student of international relations at Anglo-American University. I'm from Chile. I was wondering, with everything going on regarding NATO countries and the current, invasion or attacks of Russia into NATO, how likely would it be for NATO to actually get involved and maybe unite with Ukraine in more directly, since this is a direct threat and it is becoming more and more concerning as they invade more airspaces? And what would this mean for Europe overall, and how likely is it that the US, being one of the most important members and founders of NATO, would support and join the endeavor of protecting NATO and Europe from what Russia is currently doing? Thank you.
Investments into infrastructure are now at growing pace all over Ukraine. So let me just divide it, Ukraine and Europe. So in Ukraine, just briefly, the biggest reforms, the modernization of its critical infrastructure, coming from energy to health to basically anything you can imagine, is not by replacing the old stuff with the same technology, which you can't even get if you want to, but building it in a new way, in a decentralized way, in a green way, very much, and with modern technologies. So this is really fully fulfilling the motto of build back better. So whatever is being destroyed, whatever central capacity is out of work now, is being replaced by something much more sustainable, much more efficient, by new technologies. And very often those are technologies from Ukraine itself. So Ukraine is doing an amazing work. And fully also being integrated into the system of critical infrastructure of the European Union, which is a big deal. And it's not something that goes by itself. It's not. We should not take it for granted that Ukraine is building it not through Chinese loans, not through some other loans, but through European investment architecture, which then connects the transit of energy, the transit of course, natural resources, the transit of railroads, physical infrastructure, transportation. So by this, Ukraine is getting fully European as opposed to part of the old Soviet system of, energy pipelines. It starts with the military, with the different calibers. It goes to the types of energy it's using, to the grid. It's getting fully integrated into the European grid. Now with Europe, critical infrastructure is still being and has always been for decades developed by these big institutions. What I can note as a change in this, there is a big interest on behalf of the banking institutions in the dual use sector, and also in thinking about critical infrastructure in the perspective of defense of the country or defense of the continent. The big challenge ahead of us is to bring an order of magnitude different and more of attention of EIB, EBRD into Central and Eastern Europe, because still mostly EIB is interested and focused with their projects, with their big plans in Western Europe. Just so you can imagine, every project that we have in Ukraine or anywhere else in the world with EIB, it has to start as the minimal threshold with 50 million euro. So all these smaller scale projects are just not worth the attention of the bank. So those are really large major infrastructure projects, and most of them take place in the old Western Europe, where also Western Europe, but not so many of them took place here. So this is the big challenge for the total integration of this.
Thank you. I think the second question was for the ambassador, basically.
Yeah, basically, yes. Well, you asked me, is it in Ukraine's interest to keep fighting this war? Well, I would rather say that it is in Ukraine's interest to defend our freedom, sovereignty, and our dignity, and our territorial integrity. So that's what we are fighting for. Just to explain, it's not the normal fight. We haven't started it. We've been attacked by Russians, and that's why it's our obligation and duty to defend ourselves, for those people, for those generations to live. We understand that if we give up, that's what Putin wants, that we give up, capitulate, whatever. So it will not bring peace. It will even endanger more, not Ukraine, but entire Europe. So basically, this is at stake. And that's why we are asking all of us to do our utmost to stop Putin. And we are pretty much sure that we are eligible to do that, and capable to do that. The only thing that we need, do something. And Ukrainian soldiers, they are doing a great job. You said about morale, but please ask Russian soldiers about morale. They have none, because they don't know what they are doing. Not everywhere. You see that the front line of Ukraine is 1,200 kilometers. They are advancing on some part, but they've been repelled on other parts. So this is a war, it's very dynamic. It can be one day like this, the second day completely opposite. But what we see, they cannot achieve any strategic goals of theirs. That's why they continue their strikes on civilian infrastructure to spread fear in Ukraine, whatever. But even so, if you ask about morale of Ukrainian people, the majority of them understand what is at stake. And if we give up, we are all dead. So basically, we should do our best to defend our freedom, our sovereignty, and our European future. That is at stake. Thank you.
And the last question was apparently on general, because it was about these incursions of Russians into NATO space recently.
So, if I can, I would just add one point to what Ambassador said, even though it wasn't a question to me. It's in no one's interest to fight the war, but there's no other option for Ukrainians. Because if you look at the Russians now, their top figures declared the same strategic goals they declared in the beginning, and it's a total destruction of Ukrainian nation and their sovereignty and their nationality. So this is fight for survival of the nation. So if they want to exist as an independent nation, they have no other way, no other option than to fight. And by the way, it's not that clear with this Russians winning on the battlefield. Yes, they have some, they advance in, but they advance in like really small pieces. Yeah, and it took them 3.5 years not to take even Donbass, and they losing thousands and thousands and thousands of people every month. And it's not an honest military assessment now, what we have is that they are no, I'm not saying we are all optimistic and we see everything in rose colors, no. Yes, there's a lot of problems with manpower, with, you know, all that stuff. But actually, I mean, everyone would have at this stage of war. But at the same time, we don't see any major strategic breakthrough anytime soon on any side. They're not capable of doing this now. This is our assessment. So it's not like everything is lost, you know. But yes, you don't want to have this linear movement all the time. That's why everyone is trying to reach some reasonable ceasefire. I wouldn't say a lasting peace probably, but that would require Russians to go back to Russia. But at least a ceasefire with some security guarantees, but not the break in a Russian advance, but the real ceasefire with some reasonable guarantees. But that wasn't achieved yet. And from my point, you know, if I was Ukrainian, you know, is it in their interest to fight the war? No, they're losing lives, you know, it's destroying the country. Do they have any other option, you know, apart from, you know, losing the nation? No, right now they don't. And it's no one else's fault than Russians. That's it, basically. It's sad, but it's reality. So yes, we should do our best to have some reasonable ceasefire, and that's a political game. Okay, then the NATO, if I understand it correctly, whether the NATO will get more involved in the Ukraine, was that the question? Or the support in Ukraine, it's, you know, the decision making in NATO requires 100% consensus. The Ukraine is not covered by the Washington Treaty. So the NATO is not designed to protect the Ukraine. It should get involved, in my view. It could get involved more, but then Russia still owns the strategic nuclear weapons, and you still risk the mutual assured destruction, just like we had in the Cold War. So it is really, it is difficult. And we study also Russian nuclear doctrine. And that's really, that requires some real thinking, you know. So I don't want to say whether I would be maybe probably bold in some movements, more bold, but then it's really not easy decision making. The reaction to the incursions, I think the Russians are testing us. They're testing not only militarily, but mostly politically, where they can go. They test now unity, they test in the US reaction and everything else. It also makes sense that you are unpredictable in your reactions, so you don't want to be predictable. So you don't want to be totally predictable, like if you do this, we will do that. And it's part of the game. But I think it would be totally appropriate to declare air defense zone, for example, in some territories and say, hey, you know, we're warning you, please don't go there. We don't want to shoot you down. And if they go there, shoot them down. That's it, basically. We need to show them strong resolve. But again, you know, it's not video game. You know, this is really serious. You don't want to escalate that, you know, to something which everyone would be, regretting finally. So it's not easy decisions, you know, and I don't envy those politicians that they have to make those decisions. And the U.S. guarantee, whether the U.S. guarantee would work, I can tell you, at least in my level, with my counterpart, which is chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the United States, at the military committee level, for example, or even at some political level meetings, which I witnessed and I was in. The US never, ever questioned their commitment to NATO internally. I was in many discussions. I'm in military committees all the time at the chief of defense level. The US always mentioned, we understand NATO is important. It is important. We don't question Article 5, and I've even heard recently from this administration and their people, I've heard NATO is actually more important than ever. But at the same time, don't think we'll all do everything for you, you know. You are responsible for European defense. You also need to pull the weight. You have to do your own homework, you know, and then we will be in. And again, you know, I think it's partly, it's a geopolitical reality. The US are telling us for the long time, hey, we have global commitments, we have also other priorities in other areas, and the reality is that we are, and this is US internal discussion, we're not able to effectively deter and defend on two directions and do everything for Europe. So I think we need to understand that, but I wouldn't question the US commitment to NATO, because there's no reason to question it. There's a lot of rhetoric, there's a lot of, you know, different media noise, but realistically, there's no reason to question the US commitment to NATO right now.
Thank you very much. So I have to apologize I think that we should close it because we are running out of time, and so I think that we basically touched every important topic concerning the Ukraine, and I would like to thank all the panelists, starting with Elias, Mr. Krogman, Mr. Řehka, Vasyl, Zvarych, and Tomáš Kopečný. Thanks to all of you for coming and participating. I would like to thank all of you for being here, and please follow our calendar, and we would be happy to see you at some our next events. I would like to thank AAU, represented here by Mr. Schwarz, president of the university, and I would like to thank my team in Strategeo for putting it together. And so thanks again, and have a nice evening, and see you at some other next occasion. Thanks.